Hi, my name is Teresa Beem, and I've decided to make a series of podcasts about making mothers great again. And I know that it sounds like I'm being political with my title, but I'm not. I am neither a Republican nor Democrat. I just liked the um, the title. And so I think we could subtitle it The Art of Motherhood. So, anyway, why would I want to make a series like this? Well, about, I would say even 15 or 20 years ago, my sister, I've got three younger sisters, and one of my sisters said to me, Teresa, what is going on in our world? There's so few people who are truly wise. So few people that you'd want to sit at their feet and learn from. Where are our wise older people? And that got me thinking, once my mom's generation is gone, where are our wise people going to come from? And so I started right then to just change the whole trajectory of my life. And I thought, I need to be wise for my children and for my grandchildren. And so I started to do what the Bible said. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And since I'd loved the Lord since I was a child, I felt like, this is going to go right with what I've always done. And I had read the scriptures many, many times through. When I was 12, I made a commitment to read the Bible through once a year. And so at this point, I think I've read it through something like 40 times. And so, anyway, I was the eldest daughter of a very large family. We were Protestant, so it may not compare to a lot of large Catholic families, but for a Protestant family, we had 6 children, and I was the eldest daughter. And my mother was absolutely great. There have been people through the years that have said to me, please beg your mother to write a book on child raising, because everybody just wanted to be a part of our family because my parents, they were really, really good people, and they loved the youth. They loved babies, and they loved the youth, and everybody congregated at our family. And through the years, I've just had so many people say, your dad saved my life. Your dad gave me a love for nature. My dad would just go backpacking with the church group, young people, and he would teach them. And we were very involved in our church. We were very involved in our school as a family. Our house was Grand Central Station, and everybody would come over. And, this made all these people just really, really want to know how to be a good mom like my mom. And so, in a sense, I'm going to be dedicating this whole series to my mother, because you're going to hear a lot about her. Hopefully, maybe in the future, if she comes to visit me or we go to visit her, we can do a podcast where I can ask her some questions personally. But my mom and dad also had foster children. They had 4 foster children that they took care of. And not just the neighbor kids, not just the church kids, not just our kids, but the foster kids. And they were just wonderful parents. And I know that it would be almost selfish for us or my mom to not write a book, but she's so busy, she just is not going to be able to. And even I thought, the easier thing would be to do a podcast. And so that's what I've decided to do in her honor, since she probably will not be doing one. And so it wasn't just my mother. Because I was raised by my mother, all my sisters and my brothers have also been told they were fantastic parents. My kids, when they were very, very little, we could go to very nice restaurants, and people would come up to me all the time and say, I have no idea how your kids were so good. You didn't have to yell at them. They sat and they were quiet for the hour and a half that you were sitting at this nice restaurant. I mean, what's going on? And I think I learned a lot from my mother, because when I was a little girl, what I wanted to be was a mom. A lot of young girls, it was the 1960s and early 70s, and they were really promoting women. The Barbies were coming out with a career Barbies, and a lot of the children's and little girls' coloring books were all about girls learning to be doctors and girls learning to be, all the different things that, career girls. And I just wanted to be a mom. Now, I did have other things I wanted to do. I did want to be an actress for a while, but I decided that being a mom was just more important. And so my credentials are, from the time I was 4, I would sit right next to my mom, because she was always pregnant and having babies. And so I loved to be around my mom's babies. I loved to be around these little tiny babies. And my mother, she nursed some, and then she had a bottle for some. And so I remember at night what my mother would let me do. Of course, during the day, I was always at her side. I was always helping her with the babies from the time I was 4. And I'm not kidding you. We have video of me helping my mom change babies' diapers at the age 4. But my mother was just really patient and sweet. And she taught me how to, I remember she taught me how to pin a diaper. Remember those back in the days when they had these big safety pins, for diapers. And she explained to me how you would put the pin in the diaper, and you had to put your hand under it so that you would keep the baby from getting hurt. And mommy would have to get hurt if you stabbed it too hard. It would just happen to me, mommy, that little hand would bleed. And I remember thinking that was just wonderful. That already I was learning, because I slid my hand underneath there. And there was a couple times, or not just a couple, but many times when I would change babies, that my hand would get stuck with the pin. And I remember my mother would allow me to get up in the middle of the night. I would watch, when I was even little, I would watch for that light to come on in her room at night, which meant she was feeding newborn babies. And I would tiptoe in there, and I would sit next to my mom, and she taught me how to feed the baby with the bottle, and how to test the bottle for the right temperature. And so I just grew up around babies. And I remember when I had my own, I was probably one of the most prepared mothers for my own children. I remember when I was 12, I went to a local church. And the mothers there, they had at this local church a exercise hour for mothers. They had a Bible hour for mothers, and the mothers would switch over every single hour. And the next Bible class would come on. And so I made this proposition to the church, and I said, could I be in charge of the babies? I would do it for very little pay, but it was a way of making some extra money, because I also babysat. But at 12 years old, I went in there, and they gave me the job of watching the babies. And it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of them. There was probably 5 to 6, maybe 7 at most. And it was, each mother went for an hour, and I could ask people to come and help me, and I often did. And I remember how shocked these mothers were that I was a 12-year-old being in charge of these little children during the time. And it was almost like they were a little bit skeptical. But I remember how proud I was, because I didn't think about it. I just thought knew what I was doing. And I would say to the mom, hey, your baby is teething. She was a little bit fussy. And the mother would look at me like, oh, really? You're a little 12-year-old telling me my child's teething. And sure enough, those mothers would come back to me and go, oh, my word, you were right. Like 2 days after you told me that, a tooth popped out. And so I would just tell them about the baby, and I would tell my, change the baby, and I did a really good job. And since then, I've just had so much experience with babies, and I've enjoyed them very much, and small children, not just babies. And so, besides having 3 children, I have 21 nieces and nephews. And I'm going to try to go through this really fast. There's Courtney, Jeff, Carolyn, Heidi, James, Katie, Zachary, Jacob, Lauren, Megan, Mikey, Jacob, Timothy, Maybe, June, Jamie, Mark, Krista, Brian, Avery, and Emerson. And several of those people are married. I have a grandbaby. I have one great niece. And there are some others on the way very soon. And so most people have asked me to write a book for my mother as well as for myself, because so many people know that I was very, very, it wasn't just my mother I listened to. I was very, very interested in how, you would raise people to be good Christian, good people with good characters who were courageous. And so I watched the kids in my little church school, and I noticed very quickly that my home was very different than these other kids, and these kids would start becoming very rebellious, and they would talk badly about their parents, and talk, very, like, even from 5th and 6th grade, they were talking about wanting to take drugs. And I was just like, what makes some kids good and some kids bad? And so very early on, I started paying attention. How do mothers or really mothers and fathers dealing with the children, and how do the children turn out in those circumstances? And so I learned from the best. I mean, I was very open to seeing what was done wrong as well as what was done right. Because I grew up watching my friends, and it was naturally and automatic for me to analyze how these kids were being raised. I just want you to know, during the teenage years, my siblings and I were not rebellious. As all the other kids went through this, we had loved my parents. We wanted very much to please them, and not that we were perfect anyway, but we really were very good kids. We enjoyed my parents. We had fun together. None of us really wanted to. We were a very close family, and we played together, and we prayed together, and we were very involved in our church and school together. And I knew my parents were doing something right. And so what you need to do, first piece of advice, is learn to ask questions. Learn to look and find out what other people are doing that's right, and even what's wrong. Ask a person. You find people, because you need to find people who are adults, who've already been through all their experiences as a child, people who are especially kind, that are especially confident and humble at the same time. Maybe people who are unselfish, people who are very gracious, and ask them, what do you think your parents did correctly? What would you say was the reason you're so nice or gentle or confident, or whatever it is what values you want for your children? Look for that in other people. And then if you can even ask the parents of these people, that would be even the most optimal way of doing it, is ask mothers who have raised children who have shown themselves to be very successful at raising good children with good characters. And I would say that is my first piece of advice. But my second piece of advice is to know who not to ask. Now, when I say that, I'm being a little more stringent than I actually mean. It's not that you can't ask them, but I'm saying just be wary. If you do ask somebody, that let's just say someone who's never had a child, just be wary of their answers, because they don't have any experience. Lots of people without children and this is very typical, that they sometimes they have the strongest opinions on how to raise children. And it's okay to listen to their advice, but understand they have no experience in parenting. They're being an imaginary parent. And sometimes in real life that doesn't work. Then there are the young parents who are very often they're anxious to tell you what a great job they're doing as parents, and they'll look at their little baby, see how great we've doing. Our 4-month-old is sleeping through the night, and they're just so convinced they know exactly what they're doing. But again, listen politely to them. But these people are not going to be your primary sources for learning to be a great mother. And one of the things that's going to be a little controversial here, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, but you kind of have to be careful about teachers, because teachers have a different perspective on children. And they've got a whole bunch of them. But teachers aren't always the best to analyze children as far as being a good mom or dad. Now, they can to some extent, but I just remember one of my sons, one of his teachers got very upset because he drew pictures of guns when he was a little kid. And she just said, "Oh, he's going to be violent. Oh my," and she just wrung her hands and, "Oh my goodness, we have to put this kid in counseling." And I knew he wasn't violent. He just like a little boy. He was just a little boy, and he enjoyed drawing pictures. And the interesting thing is that he grew up and wanted to be like Andy Taylor on what's that program? Andy Taylor, the Andy Griffith Show. And so he went and became a policeman, and he is a very great, honorable policeman, and I'm very proud of him. And so I know policemen are getting like a bad rap now, but anyway. And one of the other people that I would be these are probably one of the least likely people who really know what they're talking about, who pretend that they do. And that's the people that wear lab coats. And how they know about parenting is they read books and they write theses and they give statistics about children. And these doctors and child psychologists get their experience is from not primary but secondary sources. They were in school. I know I have several doctors in our family who are women doctors, and they let somebody else raise. They let grandmother, or they let father, or they let aunt, or somebody else raise the children while they went to school. And and not to say they're bad parents. This is not against them, but again, they're learning. Many of them are learning their skills are learning their information from something other than hands-on experience. We need to be very careful about people who just spit out statistics. And that's okay for some things. But information is really, from studies, it doesn't have the same wisdom as the mothers who did the nursing and the bathing and spent nights rocking the children and figuring out what to feed them and what not to feed them and all this kind of stuff. And to just expand this a little bit bigger, a lot of young kids today, because their parents worked and they're now having their first or second child, they go to Google. That's what they want to do, is go to Google. And you can get some information, and you can even get some good information from Googling things. And you go to maybe a children's website, that for doctors, children doctors and stuff. And you can get some, but you've got to understand you can't Google wisdom, especially Christian wisdom. And Google can say a lot of things, because I know a lot of young girls who do the Google parenting, and they find out that later on they made a terrible mistake, and they wish they had an actual mom there with experience that they could have asked. And so that's kind of one of the most important reasons I'm making this video, is so that I can at least, even if I say things you disagree with, that's okay. I'm never going to tell you something that you have to do. What I'm going to do is tell you what I've experienced and what my mother taught me and what great moms of the past I have learned from watching and carefully observing their ways. And so what I want you to do is feel loved. I want you to feel inspired and bucked up and motivated, and I want you to know how wonderful it is being a parent, not to give up. And you know, a lot of women have lost their mothering instinct. I've also noticed that there doesn't seem to be the mother instinct, but it's not just having a mothering instinct. I see this all the time. But you have the inclination, but you don't have the mastery. And so you need to sit and just listen to a grandmother like me. and it doesn't have to be me. You go find a grandmother to listen to. And a loving mother studies her child, and they learn what is specific to that child. And that is what Google cannot do for you. Google can give you Google is full of people in lab coats that treat children like animals. I mean, let's just be honest. They think the human animal. A lot of them are not Christians, and a lot of them will, they give you what works on the most basic level, but they don't give you what's best. You know, they don't have the wisdom to say, you know, this isn't what just is going to get you through. This isn't what your child is going to survive on. But what you want is somebody who's going to teach you how to do the absolute best for your child. And I hope that I can be a part of that and help you. And, you know, maybe if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the comments, and I will try to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I will either not answer them, or I'll just tell you I don't know that answer. And maybe, you know, if it's somebody I know that I can ask and get you a good answer, I will definitely try to do that. Anyway, so I guess that's one of the first ones, and I guess that's all I have to say for my first podcast. But I'm looking forward to seeing you and hearing from you, and hearing from great moms out there who can put in their 2 cents, and we can talk together. Thank you very much. God bless.